Hello and welcome. This is Into Vietnam program broadcast on VITV channel, our top stories. Vietnam and Bulgaria widen bilateral ties. Banks forecast that profit will rise more than 5% in 2014. Anti-supervision is required to ensure the efficiency of Circular 09. Prime Minister Nguyễn Tấn Dũng and his visiting counterpart held talks in Hanoi on April the 7th to discuss detailed measures to boost collaboration in all fields between the two countries.
Prime Minister Nguyễn Tấn Dũng welcomes Orishasky's official visit to Vietnam, describing it as an important milestone to bolster both sides' traditional friendship and multifaceted cooperation in the future. Hailing Vietnam's achievements in recent years, Prime Minister Orishasky said his country considers Vietnam as its strategic partner in the region and will spend no efforts to unceasingly develop the relationship with the Southeast Asian nation. Both Prime Ministers agreed to enhance their bilateral connection in all fields, especially economics, trade, investment, science, education, cultural, tourism and security defense, while implementing the Vietnam-Bulgaria new cooperation model, deepening and widening the bilateral ties towards the future strategic partnership. They stressed the need to facilitate firms and investors' bids to seek partners and do business. After the talk, the two prime ministers witnessed the signing of a memorandum of understanding on agricultural, livestock breeding and fishery cooperation, and also cultural and tourism cooperation programs for 2014-2016 period between Vietnam and Bulgaria.
Banks forecast profits will increase in 2014 compared to 2013, with different expectations on the increase being, but mainly from 5% or more. This is one of the contents announced by the State Bank of Vietnam in the report on business trends of the credit institutions in Q2 2014. The report said the business situations of the majority of banks have positive changes compared to the end of 2013. More than 30% of credit institutions says they are lacking labor and intend to recruit more. Senior human resource needs to continue to increase. Improving trend is expected to continue in both Q2 and the whole year when the system liquidity is stable and business environment gets better. It's worried that the issuance of Circular 09 in replacement for Circular number 2 on loan classification and making provisions for debts will facilitate banks to hide their true non-performing loan number, and therefore the quality of banking operations will be under threat. In response, the State Bank of Vietnam said commercial banks can hardly do so under the new regulations. Circular 09 will only perform efficiently if there's tight supervision over banks reforming and resolution. Some loosening points in Circular 09 are said to be quite positive, as they support both business and banks to overcome difficulties. Banks are believed to enjoy the most benefits from the law, so there's a slightest chance that they will go against the law to make good financial reports. However, it's necessary to have tight supervision over restructured loans and debt groups to prevent any false credit reports.
Thế thì cái việc nới lỏng đó phải đồng bộ với cái việc mà giám sát của Ngân hàng Trung ương là giám sát cái việc tuân thủ tất cả các quy định, các tỷ lệ thanh khoản cũng như là các chính sách và các giao dịch tín dụng cần phải được tuân thủ theo những quy chuẩn của quản lý rủi ro tín dụng. Thành ra tôi nghĩ rằng việc giám sát chặt chẽ các ngân hàng là điều kiện tiên quyết để mà thông tư 09 có thể thực hiện được một cách nghiêm chỉnh và đúng.
Some people say the State Bank of Vietnam should consider raising the destructive loan limit on local commercial banks from the current rate of 3% so that they will not attempt to conceal their true non-performing loan number.
Hiện nay là cái tỷ lệ nợ xấu mà trong lĩnh vực ngân hàng thì có thể chấp nhận được, tồn tại ở một số văn bản ấy là cái mức loanh quanh về 3%. Thế thì hoàn toàn là cái chuẩn thiết lập nợ xấu ngân hàng ấy cũng có thể xem xét là nâng lên một cái mức phù hợp với hiện trạng hiện nay của các ngân hàng, để từ đó các ngân hàng thấy tự tin hơn trong cái việc là công bố minh bạch hóa cái thông tin trong chính nội bộ mình.
The Department for Safety Policies under the State Bank of Vietnam affirmed to be kept in the debt groups as stipulated in Circular 09, commercial banks have to meet tough requirements, and therefore it's hard for them to hide their debt amount. Besides increasing the monitoring frequency, the State Bank of Vietnam also asked credit institutions to make periodical period on credit activities to make the bad debt more transparent.
Yêu cầu tất cả các tổ chức tín dụng định kỳ phải gửi báo cáo cho ngân hàng nhà nước kết quả phân loại nợ, kết quả trích lập dự phòng trên cơ sở phân loại nợ và kết quả sử dụng dự phòng để xử lý rủi ro.
On the lender side, they should be active and truthful in loan classification and resolution. Many economists think there should be a more transparent legal framework and collaboration between relevant parties to enhance debt reform and improve credit quality of the banking system.
Để đang rất cần những cái cơ chế pháp lý cũng như cách hành xử của các cơ quan lĩnh vực, không chỉ là quản lý nhà nước về lĩnh vực ngân hàng mà cơ quan hành chính, cơ quan tư pháp. Ví dụ như là trong việc xử lý tài sản bảo đảm thì để mà khắc phục nợ xấu thì hiện nay bị cản trở với rất nhiều cái về thủ tục hành chính từ phía các cơ quan nhà đất, mà do là thiếu sự phối hợp giữa ngân hàng nhà nước, giữa Bộ Xây dựng, giữa Bộ Tài nguyên Môi trường và các cơ quan trong cái việc là thúc đẩy nhanh cái tiến độ sang tên cũng như là chuẩn hóa và hợp lý hóa cái việc là tính đồng bộ của quy định về bảo đảm và quy định về hành chính lĩnh vực quản lý nhà đất. Điều này cản trở ngân hàng xử lý rất nhiều tài sản bảo đảm.
Circular 09 has reduced the debt burden on commercial banks, as the debt amount could have been higher if Circular 02 was in place. But in fact, destructive debts are there to stay, and there's no evidence for the worthiness of the debts that have been cleared off the system. The State Bank of Vietnam should intensify their supervision role to identify the true condition of banks and develop suitable measures. Local enterprises raised around 450 billion dong from their bond issues via private placement in the first quarter of 2014, lower than the quarterly average of last year, but experts forecast the market could improve later this year. According to the data, the Central Bank's Finance and Banking Unit, enterprises registered to sell nearly 5.2 trillion dong worth of bonds via private placements as of March the 27th. Of which 450 billion dong worth had already been sold. There were few transactions on the secondary market as businesses favored the private placement method. In 2013, Vietnamese firms issued an average of nearly 10 trillion dong each quarter, a record high for the corporate bond market. The Ministry of Finance has allowed the overseas Vietnamese people to import automobiles as movable assets when they return to the country. These vehicles should have been registered in the country of residence for at least 6 months and have clocked at least 10,000 kilometers by the time of their arrival at Vietnamese ports. Moreover, these vehicles' circulation should have not exceeded 3 years since the year of production. After completing the registration procedures for getting permanent residence in Vietnam, the vehicles imported by Vietnamese overseas will be exempted from import duty, but will still face special consumption and value-added tax, and vehicle registration and circulation registration fees. Each Vietnamese overseas is allowed to import 1 car and 1 motorcycle. The move, which is part of the Ministry of Finance Circular 20, came into effect on April the 1st. And now it's time for some foreign trade news.
The Japanese daily Nikkei reported Japan will grant a zero tax rate on seafood imports from a number of countries, including tuna from Australia, crab from Canada, shrimp from Vietnam, and fish powder from Peru and Chile. However, Japan will still impose tax on seaweed products to protect local farmers' interests. Japanese seafood imports hit $14.4 billion in 2012, and the figure is expected to increase considerably when the Trans-Pacific Partnership or TPP agreement is signed. The Vietnam Food Association or VFA forecasts rice exports in the second quarter of the year will continue to face fierce competition from Thai rice and domestic rice market fluctuations. Agricultural Exports said the challenges lie ahead for Vietnam export market as the domestic price currently stands at very high level and is going to put pressure on export prices. The VFI forecasts Vietnam will export 700,000 tons in April based on the side contracts. Vietnam exported 583,000 tons of rice in March, realizing gross revenues of $256 million, up 77.7% compared to February. According to the VFA, exports in March surpassed the set plan, but accumulated 3-month exports were much lower than the same period last year due to low inventories, limited supply, and a relatively high domestic price amid a declining world price. Apart from the Philippines, other Vietnam rice consumers saw a sharp decline in volume compared to a year ago.
According to Cashman and Wakefield's recent report, the high rate of occupancy and period of rent stability in commercial leasing sector in Ho Chi Minh City may be short-lived, while the rents for most grades in Hanoi should continue the downward trend. Instead, while the solid start to 2014 in Ho Chi Minh City has continued into the second quarter, over 500,000 square meters of office space is due to come into the market this year from 3 projects in the CBD area and a further 110,000 square meters in the first quarter of 2015, subverting this stability. In Hanoi, more than 800,000 square meters of office space across all grades is expected to hit the market in the next 2 years, keeping a downward pressure on asking rents. Cashman and Wakefield expects 2014 to be a favorable year for tenants, while landlords will have to suffer from fierce competition from new supply. Sugar inventories in the first quarter of this year rose 50% over last year to 600,000 tons, while prices of processing plants fell to the lowest level in 5 years. Data from the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development showed by the end of March, the sugar sector produced 1.17 million tons, about 120,000 tons more than during the same period last year. The ministry estimated that sugar output this year will reach 1.6 million tons, while domestic consumption will be a record of 1.4 million tons, resulting in sugar supplies being 200,000 tons larger than demand this year. In addition, as part of the Country World Trade Organization commitment, Vietnam would have to import 77,000 tons of sugar. The import amount, together with sugar inventories from previous years and illegal importing of sugar over borders, will leave the nation's sugar stock at 400,000 tons. And last but not least, Today update on local gold prices, forex and stock markets. The program has come to an end. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you soon tomorrow. Until then, bye-bye.